I want to tell you something, right? It's something so precious. It's coming to you from my spirit, right? But it's very difficult for me to get out, right? Because it's coming from somewhere so deep within me. I tried for 20 minutes to put it the right way and I couldn't, okay? So I'm just gonna tell you this, just straight from my soul. And who has to understand and get the message? The Spirit of God will land it to them. I want to tell you that timeline jumping is for real. As a child, I could never see a future for me, and I am a very prophetic person. The things that I have seen for people have always been absolutely right on. Even some crazy things like my dance teacher had quit classical dancing when she got pregnant, and then she had a baby and she was feeding the baby. She put on weight thrice her original size and she despaired, oh, will I ever go on stage again? But I said, you will next month. And you know what? Next month she was on stage. She hadn't lost all of her weight, but she had begun to dance again and she was doing it so beautifully that she was back on stage at a very huge dance, at an event, purely classical dance event. She was on stage, she was the lead. Beautiful it was. I'm a prophetic person, but I never could see a future for myself. When people used to ask me as a kid, what do you want to do when you grow big? I used to be blank because I couldn't see myself as an adult. And this continued into my teen years and it continued after that, it continued. And to this day, I can't. And you know why? It's because I've been timeline jumping. I want to tell you, you soul who are listening to me, soul who are listening to me, you soul who are listening to me. You are not bound by this timeline or any progression of logic. You don't have to do things the way others do them. You don't have to do the things that others do. You don't have to follow the rules that others follow. This entire idea that we have of this world is a fiction. Fiction. Just because so many people believe that this is the way things are does not make them the way things are. I want to humbly give you my own life experience. In the presence of God, I give you my humble, unbelievable life experience. My mother conceived me when she was across the sea from my father. She was standing in an underground cave when she looked up and she saw a sculpture of two people making love, a very ancient sculpture in an underground cave. That cave has never been heard of since, but my mother swore that she and a group of nuns with her went there and they all went into that cave, but the nuns went in one direction and she found herself wandering away. Just as I wandered around temples today, she wandered and she found herself at that spot, and sexual desire awoke in her for my father. She desired him. She allowed herself to desire him. There was no way that he and she could ever be together, but she desired him. She was even on that trip. She was on that trip to forget him. She put an ocean between him and her. She went with a group of nuns. And you know what? That day she got pregnant. That was how I entered this world. And across the sea, my dad, he took out a newspaper cutting of that day because he wanted to show her that he knew that she and her had been together that day and something had happened. Because the newspaper has the date of the date. He kept the cutting with the date that on this day I remembered you. On this day we were together. That was how I was conceived. How was it even possible? And yet my granddad told me, he said to me that 70 to 80% of real soul pregnancies happen through soul merging. This is in all the ancient stories, epics, and songs. Your eyes made me pregnant is a very common lyric in many folk songs, and yet it is considered completely impossible in our times. What a thing! I would never have believed it, and yet it happened to me. I'm just a normal person like anybody else, but it happened to me. God is my witness, it happened to me. There are thousands of people who are witness that I got pregnant without so much as holding a man's hand. Not even holding a man's hand. Not even that. And I literally have a grown son who was born speaking other languages and is just unlike anyone I've ever known in this life. Other than my dad, he's a lot like my dad. But he's very different. But I got pregnant too, like that. Let me tell you something. I was not supposed to even survive and reach the age of 9. I wasn't. Strange shit happened. My granddad arrived suddenly. They couldn't go ahead with what they were planning to do. My body was a vegetable. I was in a coma, and they were planning to keep me a vegetable, you know, my body like a zombie, to use my body for all their various things because the life force, the very, very, very last bit of life force was still there, but I was totally like in a coma, and they were just thinking of what to do or something like that when my granddad arrived, and he changed the story. He changed the story. He came there and he changed the story, and they had to let me live because he was watching, and then my dad was told about it, and my dad was watching. I was never supposed to survive a similar ritual that happened when I was 15. It was brutal. I bled a lot. I no longer could go cycling to school after that. And they didn't expect me to even finish school, you know? Because someone who goes through that kind of blood draining, and you know what? I never even missed one day of school. I just couldn't cycle, right? So then I went by bus and I went by auto to school after that. I was not supposed to get through. And then I wasn't supposed to go past what is college or the 12th grade because they artificially manipulated my grades. So, to give me wrong marks in two subjects. So, which meant that I didn't pass and I would have to repeat the exams for those two subjects. And in India, when that happens, you're done for. Your options are very less in a career after that. But you know what? Out of the blue, some other thug faction came in and wanted that I go to Australia. And one thing led to another, and strange, strange things happened. There even was the incident where I was hit by a car. It's called hit and run, and it was to kill. I actually was dead on the road about half an hour. A car hit my bike, caught my ankle in the fender and dragged me and the bike about 20 feet on a tar road. I remember a man coming out of the car. The car stopped. A man came out. He took my ankle out of the fender and tossed it on the ground. Looked at me and said to the other man in Kannada that it's finished. And they got back in the car and they left. And I don't remember anything after that. I must have died. I don't remember. And this happened in the dark at 5:30 a.m. When I came to my consciousness, someone was coming out of the building in which the church meeting was, and it was the sun was up. I must have died and come back. I don't know now. That much time was past. They allowed me to be nearly half an hour on the road before anyone came out. And yet they all said they heard the accident, the metal of my bike scraping on the tar road. They heard it, but they didn't come to see what it was. I survived death. They tried to kill me so I wouldn't leave here and go to Australia because the Thug factions like to keep their ritual subjects in their territory, because otherwise they'll have to behave themselves and pay others for access and go by the rules. But that's how it's so like they did all this, and I still went somehow to Australia, and my whole life changed because I saw life outside of the hole that I was in growing up. And my whole life changed because there I saw women who had escaped abusive situations. For the first time in my life over there in Australia, I saw women and I heard them speak who had escaped abusive situations and all of that. And so that idea came in me that I will also live with self-respect. It is possible. It is possible. It was a timeline jump. If you had seen me in those days before then, you wouldn't have recognized me, you know? It was a timeline jump. And I could never see any future because from where I was in that progression, there was no future. I want to tell you this from the bottom of my heart. You know what always lifted me on? What has made miracles happen is that I have allowed this love in my heart for God as I perceive Him. From my childhood, I have been in love with God as I perceive my personal God. I once felt Him as a cloud. I once felt Him as God, my Father. And then I experienced Him as God, my beloved. I saw Him in a vision. And I have loved Him mad. And I have just closed my eyes and walked out of every life that I ever had towards Him, and I always will. And I want to tell you, soul, that your true life is the life of your love, of your heart, not the life your certificates tell you is your life, not the life that the different addresses you have lived at say is your life, not the life your so called mother or father or brother or sister say is your life, not the life where you went from I was doing this at this age to I was doing this to I did that, not where you woke up and where you fell asleep, not what you ate, not the shops you bought from, not the money you had, not your bank account, not even your name, not even your name, not even your name. Your life is the love of your soul, and you will always move to the time where you need to be and where your soul finds joy. You will always be moving towards your love. Don't be afraid, just keep loving.